Hi everyone, this is Arpad from Starpath Academy, and today I have a very special guest on. His name is Ruben Yap, and he is the co-founder and project steward of the cryptocurrency project Firo. Ruben, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on. Yeah.
Well, thank you for agreeing with this interview. First and foremost, I want to let the viewers know that we are not giving investment advice. This is just a friendly chat between two individuals. However, we would like to share this content with you. So no crypto advice, but personally, I am a little bit of excited about Firo and what you are trying to achieve. And I would like to know more about the project for myself, and hopefully some viewers are interested as well. So first of all, could you tell me how the project started and what is the main mission of Firo?
Right. So Firo is actually a privacy-oriented cryptocurrency. I guess I hate saying that, the original vision of cryptocurrency, but it kind of is, right? I mean, when I first got into cryptocurrency in like 2013, early 2013, Bitcoin and all these things were promoted as like an alternative form of money that was free from any sort of centralized control. It was an answer to, arbitrary money printing and things like that, and to kind of remove intermediaries. So it's this alternative financial system. And similarly, I guess one of the important things about maintaining such a system is to have privacy, right? And back then, I guess Bitcoin, although a lot of people knew it was pseudonymous, but there was this general misconception that Bitcoin is private. Of course, now we know better, right? But so our project was actually originally called Zcoin, that was launched in 2016, and what we set out to do was basically to provide this privacy ability to Bitcoin, because we didn't see it likely for Bitcoin to actually adopt this type of technologies because they are ultra conservative. And the protocol that we used was something called Zero Coin, and Zero Coin was actually one of the first kinds of privacy protocols that use zero knowledge proof. It is different than the zero cash protocol that's used by the Zcash thing. We'll talk about that later, but basically it allows people to burn their coins and to redeem them at any time in the future for brand new coins with no previous associated transaction history. So it's a bit different compared to stuff like coin mixers or things like that, where you kind of like humble it with other stuff, and you're just kind of adding, like mixing your coins with other people's coins. While here you're kind of like making it disappear and reappear. So we feel like that was a much more, I guess, a better privacy model. And
Quite interesting, yeah.
yeah, so obviously, we've made a lot of technical advancements over there, and now the privacy protocol, we don't use the zero coin protocol anymore. We use something called Lelantus, and now moving to something called Lelantus Spark, which I guess we could talk about later. But yeah, we are a privacy focused cryptocurrency, and how it started was there was this zero coin paper out. The other co-founder, Poramin, was a master's student at Johns Hopkins University, and he really wanted to create a working implementation of this, and that's kind of how the project started. And thus far, all throughout the 6 years of existence, we have been very committed to being a privacy-focused cryptocurrency. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. So we did mention prior to the interview that we're going to do a two-part interview, one where we're going to talk more about the philosophy of the coin and the team behind it and all of that interesting stuff. And then I am interested more about the actual maybe cryptographic algorithms as well in the second part of the interview. So for now, the mission is to provide, so I want to rephrase it in one word, and of course, feel free to correct me. The mission is sort of to provide a privacy-oriented alternative currency to the rest of the crypto space. However, still maintaining your original goals that was from Zero Coin, right? So
Yeah, zero coin is just a tool in our philosophy. It's not like our philosophy to do zero coin, but the pillar is privacy, right? And we'll use whatever tool or come up with tools to achieve that goal. So I guess that's the main focus there. Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, why the rebranding to Firo?
Right. So this is a very good and common question, and it's still a bit controversial because, Zcoin has some recognition, right? People associate with it, but somehow we felt that there were, I guess, two big reasons. One of the reasons was that we were constantly being confused for Zcash, even though we completely use different cryptographic protocols, different, we don't really share any, like, no common roots. We don't use that thing, and people always call us a Zcash fork, which is very unfortunate because we are one of the few projects that spent a lot of research and development time building our privacy protocols. So, that was kind of unfortunate. And furthermore, Zcoin was named after the zero coin protocol, which we don't use anymore. And we're like, and I think furthermore, it's like, look, what are we trying to be? We're trying to be cryptocurrency, right? And let's be real, like Bitcoin isn't a really good name. It just kind of stuck, right? But when Bitcoin was still small, everyone was like, what's Bitcoin coin? It's like, is this some sort of toy money or stuff like that, right? It didn't sound legitimate. Well, if you compare it with like things like the euro, the peso, the pound, the dollar, right? Like those are easy to say. There's no coin. It's just like a unique word on its own. And we thought like, hey, Firo, sounds like currency, and it also ties into our burning and redeeming mechanism like Fire, Firo, Red, and all of that. So that's kind of why we decided to do the rebrand, because we were moving to a new privacy protocol, wanted to shed away like anything about zero coin. We didn't want to be confused with Zcash or zero cash. And we wanted to sound like a real currency. So I guess those are the main factors of the rebrand. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, totally makes sense. So you touched already on a couple of topics, or you mentioned some words that we at the channel really like to ponder upon, from issuing too much currency and doing inflation being built into the system. Actually, a lot of my viewers from the comments, I can tell, are hard money people. That means gold and silver, and also are sort of like in the knowledge of central banking and all the mess that comes with it. So I was listening to one of your live streams, and I was really delighted to hear that you mentioned these things, and that was one of the key factors that why I wanted to invite you over to this channel, because you seem to know all of that. Plus, you're developing a cryptocurrency. So, as I understand it, Firo is a deflationary currency. So there's a max cap to how much Firo there could be minted. Can you talk about that aspect of the coin?
Okay, this is gonna be a bit controversial, but I think it's a good thing. Okay. So first of all, I don't know if you can count Bitcoin as deflationary. Yes, there's a fixed cap, but there is still emissions that there are inflation, right? Like there is still inflation. It's just, I think the key difference, like for me personally, I'm not against inflation as long as there's no central body that can say, I can arbitrarily let's print more money and stuff like that, right? If it's like a fixed emission, right? Like people know about it, we all just adapt around it, right? There's no like one body deciding to print money and reward like a select few, or to like bail out banks or to bail out big corporations. I think that's the real problem, right? Where someone arbitrarily decides to print money and decides how that money should be allocated. That's a big problem, right? And yes, currently Firo follows the same kind of schedule as Bitcoin. Basically everything's almost the same, right? We do have a faster block time, but we have adjusted the block reward, so it's going to be like 100+ years or so before entire supply is issued, right? Now, now there's been some discussion in the community, and this is something that I personally feel that we should be addressing right now, is that I don't think that Bitcoin can survive with a fixed supply. It can survive with what we call a tail emission. That means once the 21 million is finished, there'll be maybe a sub 1% emission fixed each year, so that it can replace the coins that are lost, and there's still some reward to continue the miners. There's a stability there, right? And rather than saying no, there's nothing, and everyone just survives off the fees, transaction fees alone. Now, if you take a look at the trajectory of Bitcoin right now, we are not heading down this pure fee market route. And to be, that means that remove all the Bitcoin block reward subsidies and survive off fees alone. And that to me sounds a bit incredulous. Like, there is actually a 2016 study by Princeton that actually said that, look, this thing actually isn't sustainable, and we'll start hitting these problems, in not right now, but a couple of years to come down. And we have to realize that Bitcoin, although I'm a big believer in cryptocurrencies, cannot go up forever, right? There will come a point whereby it will hit maturity. It's just like, there's no more parabolic. It cannot keep on going up forever unless our population is like forever, right? And right now, Bitcoin miners and all this, despite the halving, have been sustained because the price has been growing up more than the cut in the block reward. But are you saying that, every 4 years it's going to go up 10 times? I find that a bit hard to believe, especially now that everyone has most people have kind of heard what Bitcoin is. They may not totally understand it, but they know of it, right? And there's not going to be that parabolic growth that we've seen in the early years, right? This is a asset class that is starting to mature. And that's why I feel that, yes, we are against like hyperinflation, against an arbitrary amount. But there's now some discussions that maybe we should be getting ahead of the curve and looking at stuff as a tail emission. That means there'll be like a 1% or sub 1% inflationary year. And this will be forever. No one can change it, right? Or without like huge community approval. I mean, I think we'll see some really big shifts in Bitcoin as they realize that this model isn't going to work. So yes, I am for like hard money, but I guess there are different spectrums of hard money, and I'm not against inflation, but I'm against arbitrary inflation. And yeah, that's my point of view.
Well,
but we are right now following a Bitcoin schedule. Yeah.
I see. Well, I don't want to become immediately on your side, but to be fair, even gold mining has increased over the years, roughly 1% or something. So you're thinking that if it has a truly fixed cap at the end, that might mean that eventually there's no way how to reward miners. That could be one problem, right?
The security of the chain will be significantly compromised, and you don't actually need what we call a 51% attack. There's something called a selfish mining attack, which requires like 30% or something like that. So removing that reward completely is, to me, a recipe for disaster, but one that, because unfortunately the 21 million is such a big thing in Bitcoin philosophy, right? So I think they'll try to find ways to get around it without breaking the 1 million. Maybe, I don't know, some sort of redenomination or whatever. But I feel that this is something that will be coming, maybe not in the next 4 years, maybe 8 years, but yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
I think most people have a problem with inflation because, or at least a high enough inflation because it punishes savers, right? If you want to maybe work the first half of your life and then travel and have fun for the second half, however, the currency that you accumulated during the hardworking days, if that is being inflated away, I think well, somebody cheated you. You could feel that, and I feel that is correct to say. So it depends. I agree. If it's a small enough inflation, I think that could work because I mean, actually, technology is deflationary. So and also a tiny bit of inflation could, in my opinion, be a safe gap for, let's say, companies, right? Who need to invest, and then they want to make sure that they can sell that the products and so on. So that's quite interesting, that your take, because I was about to ask, like, well, 21 or 21.4 million, why the extra four? I don't understand.
The 0.4 million was an unfortunate. There was an error in the code very early on. It was like one or 2 months after launch. Back then, it was just basically one developer when when that project launched, and an error crept in, which resulted in this kind of like inflation. Obviously we could have said like, oh yeah, we had to honor it because that's what the code allows it to, right? And we disclosed it, and we say, look, okay, what should we do with it? The community say just add it on, right? So
Right.
that was like 2 months after launch, we had that bug. Obviously it's not a desirable thing, but it's happened, and
So
yeah.
you took the honest way out instead of forking the whole thing. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we get crap for it, but I feel that this is the more honest way. And what people don't realize is like, oh, you guys have done it, but actually, like, Bitcoin had two inflation bugs in its history, right?
Yeah.
There was one that a trillion Bitcoin or something was printed. That was, of course, early on, still like us, right? It was new stuff. And the second one was sometime in 2018, 2019. It was actually a live bug that was introduced, that was not taken advantage of, but could have also resulted in a huge amount of inflation. And people say, oh, we could roll back the chain or whatnot. No, that's in a very vibrant ecosystem with exchanges, people buying and selling and whatnot. It will be simply very difficult to roll back the chain or do something like that. So it would have been interesting to see what the core developers would have done, right? How do you do that? Because in any case, if you're going to roll back the chain, someone's going to lose, right? So we're like, look, in the grand scale of things, yes, 400,000 isn't good, but it's better than doing all this other stuff. Yeah.
And let's not forget about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic and
yes,
forking it
because
of the hack that happened to Ethereum. So right. So I do feel that. Can you talk more about the team behind Firo and how you just came or now are polling for how to have continuous funding for Firo? I feel that some projects are becoming stale in the cryptocurrency space, including Bitcoin, to be honest. Even though there are some developments going on in the Lightning Network and so on. Can you talk about the philosophy of Firo, like for the core development team, but also how to kind of keep the community more vibrant?
Right. I think that's a great question, and this goes down to like how do we continuously fund development, right? And obviously there are several models, and I just briefly touch on them so people know the alternatives, right? So obviously you could have something like Bitcoin, right, where because it's grown so big, people want to contribute voluntarily. But even now, the bulk of the development are done by one or two entities that I funded by people with a vested interest in Bitcoin. And that may be good or bad, right? Because obviously the people who are funding it have the interest, right? And therefore they can steer the development in a certain way. And some people, I don't know whether I completely buy, I kind of, feel that Bitcoin is kind of like, moved from being like digital cash to becoming this store of value thing, and this was something that was really being promoted by companies like Blockstream and stuff like that, right? Which are very influential because a great number of contributors come from Blockstream, right? At least the core ones. Then there's the others, like you have an ICO or a pre-sale, right? That's another way to get funding, right? Which is basically like centrally allocated funding, right? Then you have there are other ways that are more sneaky, like for example, you can have a very fast emission, like, you know, I'm going to fully allocate my supply in 2 years, right? And maybe I pick a certain hardware that I have a control, like a certain ASIC, right? Or like a certain hardware class that I have a lot of. And I'm going to completely emit in like 2 years.
Glad you mentioned that,
yeah, people don't realize that a lot of coins that claim to be fairly mined or fairly launched actually have have benefited early adopters in a very unfair way because they had some sort of advantage, right? So so we have kind of decided in what we call a development reward, which means 15% of the block reward goes towards the core team to develop. And yes, there's pros and cons to this. The pros is that we don't get all the money up front, which is both a pros and cons. The pros is that we are kept accountable to the project because, you know, if we get a lot of money up front, like, you know, ICOs, like 90+% of them, they just take the money and enjoy life, right?
This
and
way
you're seeing this.
Have to be more active continuously in order.
Correct. We continuously have to work for our money, right? That's one thing. And secondly, the good thing is that it's also that, like, you know, the success of the coin also leads to the, you know, the growth in the core team, right? That means, like, if it does well, we get more funding to do more stuff, right? Now, obviously, you know, because all our code is open source, if we aren't doing a good job, you know, people can just focus on remove the debt reward and, like, yeah, we're kind of screwed, right? Like, if this community is sufficiently unhappy about us. But the drawbacks of having a core development fund is that there's also this kind of misunderstanding that the core team should be responsible for everything. Because you have to realize, yes, 15% of block reward goes to the core team, but 85% goes to the community, right? We cannot be competing with pre-sale like, you know, VC funded coins where, you know, they have like 20% to team, 30% to advisors, 20% to exchanges and stuff like that, and then they have all these huge amounts of funds to grow, right? And you expect us to perform on the same level as that because we simply don't have the amount of funding to throw, like, you know, $100 million to fund our ecosystem or something like that, right? So it has to be a joint effort between the community and the core team. The core team does the really technical stuff. We can suggest and make directions and, you know, strategy. But ideally, especially as a privacy coin, so there is a proposal now that looks to going to pass, which creates another community fund that is not run by the core team at all, but run by the community. And basically that would be like 10% of the block reward. And we would like to kind of experiment with this to say, look, now the community can have a separate source of funding that they can use to fund and take the project in whatever direction they want, right? And the core team does not have say over that. So
it's quite interesting.
So eventually, once the project gets big enough, you know, once all the foundations of the technology are there, maybe even the core team's development reward can be just a big community fund. Now, obviously, the community fund would probably start with elected committee, not by the core team, but by, you know, the community through some sort of vote, right? But eventually, what I hope that the community fund would be almost like a quadratic voting type of thing, which is a very interesting idea whereby people vote by donating to the stuff that they want to fund, and then the community fund will match it. But the matching is not necessarily going to be 1-to-1. It may be less than 1-to-1 or more than 1-to-1. There has been cases where a $1 contribution by one person has led to a $50 matching. And that, how they assess it is by the level of interest, how many donations from people in the community have shown interest in this particular thing. And this is kind of pioneered by Gitcoin. So we obviously need time to develop this infrastructure, but that's the end goal, right? Where this community fund is like you vote with the money. Even if you have $1, the fact that you have voted increases the chance of that matching fund funding the rest of it. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And I do think that's a very promising direction of community governance. Yeah.
That's another thing that I liked where you were discussing this with a couple of members on the YouTube channel. We'll have a link to the Firo YouTube channel in the description. However, I like that. So just for the viewers, in open source software, that is how you fund new features. There's one way how to fund new features is that because there's no central government that says like these will be the new features and that's it, because then that will become proprietary and can be taken over very easily as long as you control the core team. However, when you want to fund new features, somebody can propose a feature and then people from the community vote or basically pay for the feature for somebody to develop it. And then plus the community fund can actually add to that as well. And that's how you get new features and the community stays more alive, but also the project keeps on bettering itself. So
yeah, and I think that's
approach. And it's
I think that's
like
also
fairly already kind of fair because it's 15 and 10%.
Yeah.
So that's it's not like I think it's fairly fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I obviously, you know, we want to start, right? Because like the community has not like they haven't got this is the first time that they're being handed the reins, right? So we want to make sure that it's not going to be like like a total mess. But I think we have to go into the right direction. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
So the project itself, when did it start and how long has been going on? Because this is
2016. September 2016. Yeah.
Right.
We've been around for a long time. I can see the first few years were
established project that has been going on pretty steadily for a long time now. Yeah. And now you're opening it up for the community. And so my understanding is that for now, it's been a project that you've been working on, but now maybe with community fund, you can do marketing and some other stuff because I mean, to be honest, I want to say nice things, but if people take a look at the YouTube or the Twitter account, it doesn't have like that major following that some of these coins that do way less, but they spend a lot on marketing. They pull in the influencers and whatnot. So I really don't like that aspect of the crypto space, but they do it and they become successful, and they in the project sometimes it's also baked in that they always have to keep on growing. There's no as you said, like people fund it who initially made a huge chunk of money and now want to fund the project with that money so they can maybe exit their position at some point, right? Make the value of the coin always keep on growing. And I do feel that the crypto space is somewhat maturing, as you said, because it's not like it was 5 or 10 years ago or where nobody heard about it. Now your uncle seems to know about it, your neighbor seems to know, even if they don't have any. So I feel that we are getting somewhat saturated. There's only so many people in the world. And of course, people can have their own opinions in the comments, but it has bloomed. I think it's still blooming, but eventually and I feel free to disagree with me, but my take is that eventually we're going to get to that .com bubble phase where in my opinion, there will be a crash. And then we'll see who remains after that crash. And the good teams, the good communities who have who are morally strong, but also have a strong conviction of what they want to achieve and not just being like, oh, let's pump the coin. I think those will come out winning in the other side. Now, I don't know who these projects will be, but it's interesting to see how this space has developed. So one more question, and I will let you go. What I understand that, of course, we talked about the 10% and the 15%. What happens with the rest? and how is that distributed for the miners, and what is different for Firo and that how the coin is being mined?
Oh, that's a great question.
Than Bitcoin, let's say.
So we currently, with the current way it's before the proposal goes through, the current division is 50% to the miners, 35% to special nodes called master nodes, and 15% to the development team. Right now, the current leading poll, it's actually 25% to the miners, 50% to the master nodes, and what I think I'm wait, so 50%. Then there was 15% and 10%. So basically 25, yeah, correct. 25, 50, 10, and 15. So basically miners are kind of being slashed half. And there's a very, very long discussion on why that is the case. But the idea is that our consensus mechanism is a hybrid mechanism whereby both the miners and the master nodes contribute to the consensus, whereby miners are still offering distribution and they're also offering what we call backup security, while the master nodes are providing the first layer of security, which also has very nice properties of saying, like, a block is final within one confirmation. A transaction is final within a couple of seconds, regardless of block confirmation time, which is a continuous problem with many, many other coins, right? Like even with Bitcoin or Ethereum, like you have to wait, X number of confirmations. Well, how do I know how many confirmations is safe, right? And we like the fact that, and especially as a smaller coin, we have been attacked, 51% attack. And this is not like a problem with the code. This is how proof of work works, right? And, especially because we have focused on what we call GPU miners, which is basically commodity hardware, right? We don't want to say ASICs dominating that, right? And because of that, that's also kind of hits us back, because if someone with a GPU farm attacks us, the value of the GPU still is fine because they can mine Ethereum, they can mine something else. While with an ASIC, you're not going to see that, because if you attack the coin that your machine was built for, then your machine becomes worthless, right? So it's a trade-off, right? With GPU mining, you can get like access to like more fair distribution and stuff like that, but you also becoming subject to like mercenary miners, which unfortunately, I mean, there's even like some very hardcore miners like Voscoin have started questioning, well, are GPU miners like before, where they will mine to support the project that they are, but now it's more like for example, with Ethereum, right? Ethereum has abandoned GPU miners. They're like, screw you all. We're going to do proof of stake and cut you off completely. We have that, that EIP that also cuts the miner fees, right? And all these miners are up in arms, but you ask them what they're mining, they're still mining Ethereum, right? So it is clear that the miners right now, especially the GPU miners, the majority of them, not all of them, are mining purely for monetary reasons, right? And they become mercenaries, right? And we are thinking, well, look, we've already had 6 years of distribution. Other coins besides Bitcoin, like, if you take a look at Monero, or you take a look at Ethereum, most of the supply is already fully issued after 6 years, compared to us, where we are kind of like just halfway through, right? Do we still need this? Like, Bitcoin is kind of different because it existed in a vacuum where there were no exchanges. There's no other way to get Bitcoin besides mining it. Now that we have very well-developed markets, exchanges, people are aware of cryptocurrency. I don't know whether we need like 100 years of distribution for a coin, right? So we'll see, right? I still like proof of work as a hybrid because there are certain benefits, like, for example, if the masternode networks fails, like for example, people don't realize that proof of stake also has a different kind of centralization because they are stored in these data centers. There are only a few companies can provide very well, right? If a large data center comes down, or the government says like you're not allowed to host this, that's also a risk. While miners, especially if it's a GPU miner, anyone can just like spin up a miner on their computer, and the chain keeps going. So I like the hybrid mechanism, but I feel that to have a pure proof of work chain with especially commodity mining, unless you're like Ethereum, is kind of tough in this day and age. But yeah, I don't want to take too much time because it's a very complex and nuanced
Well, I did want to
topic.
take, so this
Yeah.
question in the second part of the interview, but looks like you answered a lot, but now I got more intrigued. However, if you have a couple more minutes, I would like to
Sure.
ask, like, so basically one of the problems that I'm hoping that the crypto space would solve with privacy first coins would be just regular transactions. I feel that Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of these
Yeah.
bigger ones became well, first of all, a lot of big players moved in, like JP Morgan and some other banks. So I feel like they are taking over as how who owns the coins, and they can play with the price if they choose to eventually. But also for me, I feel like it has to have some kind of utility other than speculation and other than holding value, which is it is holding, but with huge swings. I wish to solve a problem where a regular farmer who wants to sell, let's say, milk, which might be actually illegal to sell in some states, unless it's cat food or something like that. They should be able to sell that to their clients for cat food in this case, with a coin that is privacy first, fast in transaction, and fairly well used within the community. So I'm feeling that for that, Ethereum is not really solving. It's more like the world computer that it has been, or it has been advertised for that. Bitcoin became something else. It's not because of it's more of a speculation or holding it for hodling it for long term. Ethereum is again transaction fees, gas fees are not there. We do see some other coins like Stellar and some other coins which are there via transaction fees, low transaction fees. However, they don't really care about privacy. Actually, quite might be the opposite. So where does Firo come in to solve this problem of transaction between two people that's private with low cost? What is the current transaction cost of Firo, or how could Firo come in and solve this problem?
Well, the transaction cost is really negligible. Like, I don't know, it's like 1 cent or something less than that. It's really, really small, right? But I also would like to caution that, not necessarily low fees for a lot of projects will say like, oh yeah, super low fees, but it's also because the blocks are relatively empty, and once they start hitting the limit, they will start having this issue, right? Obviously, right now, the way that we're going, it looks like we'll have, 8 times the capacity of Bitcoin today, which is already to me like pretty good. Obviously, we are not sticklers with the block size, right? Because we can increase to 8 MB or something like that with no issues. And obviously, there are other solutions that we can think of, but I feel that right now we shouldn't be like focusing on building this very, very, very large road. Like right now we have like an 8-lane road and like maybe 1 lane is being used, right? Why should we be thinking about building a 200-lane road if we haven't gotten those 8 lanes even close to being filled, right? Obviously we have ideas on how to do that, but we have to focus right now on what our core thing is, which is the privacy. Any project that says they can then they can address everything together, is talking crap. Like, Ethereum also can't solve privacy, right? It's about the focus, right? So in terms of usability, let's kind of be real, right? Like when you I got into privacy cryptocurrencies and also cryptocurrencies in general because not necessarily we're doing illegal things. This is something that I wanted to say. Like, for example, when I was in 2007, I started a VPN business, right? And VPNs are completely legal, right? There's nothing that I'm doing that's wrong. I'm just providing people a way to encrypt their internet connections, and now it is bundled as part of your browser, your antivirus. It's so commonplace. But back in 2007, we are in that same position that privacy coins are today. Oh, why would you want to encrypt your internet traffic? You must be doing something bad. which is like the same thing that's happening with privacy coin. Why we use a privacy coin? Because you're going to do something bad. But because of that stigma, because of running a VPN business was seen as negative, and although I was paying taxes, completely legal, very low chargeback rates, everything was above the board, right? But payment processors were cutting me off. Credit cards, they didn't want to allow me, and all of this sort of stuff. And as a result, like 2Checkout terminated the thing, saying we're not happy with VPN businesses, right? And I was like, hey, I'm doing a legitimate business, but I can't accept money just because some people are uncomfortable. And this is kind of like the permission system that we're kind of moving into, especially now, like with central bank digital currencies coming in. Like now our money, the government can say what we can or cannot spend on, which is to me totally kind of ridiculous, right? I use the internet for whatever I want, right? Yes, there'll be some bad use cases, but there's also a lot of good things that can happen. And that's the same thing with money, right? And yeah, I feel that is not about just hiding illicit activity or stuff like that. It's about that having that freedom to transact, right? And that's kind of what Firo has been focused on. And that's why we have stuff like, instant send, instant block finality. That means when I send to you a transaction, it's final within a couple of seconds of receiving it, which is maybe even faster than a credit card machine right now, right? I think that's really powerful. So we're not going down the SOV route where it's okay to settle in 10 minutes. We still want it to be easy face-to-face. But at the same time, we also have to realize that cryptocurrency payments for like face-to-face transactions, to me, they're going to be more of like a niche, right? Like, I mean, people talk about, oh, yes, people are using it. Yes, there are going to be some people doing that, but we are moving into a more digital age. And if you look at currently, what is the main use case for cryptocurrencies or where we are seeing adoption are cryptocurrency ecosystems like Ethereum, right? Or like where you have all sorts of things you can do, the DeFi stuff, the NFT stuff that you can only do with crypto. Like whatever your views are on NFTs or DeFi, it's clear that right now the level of adoption of crypto are things to do in crypto only stuff, right? The day-to-day transactions, there are people using it, but it's hard to say like, why shouldn't I just use cash? Why should I need to use crypto? Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
And I feel that, obviously, if we move to like completely CBDCs, and there are certain countries that are like, weaning off cash, like China, you can hardly use cash. Yeah, then privacy cryptocurrency is a thing, but we pay our taxes, we receive money in fiat, and for many things. So I feel that, yes, it is. We are not abandoning this thing that we are this alternative financial infrastructure, but we also have to be real as to what people today are going to use it. We want to be there so that, if like really shit hits the fan, we will be there. But at the same time, we also have to think, what is our utility today? And that's why Firo, although we are still privacy focused, we're still about transactions and like, payments as well. We are now also building the infrastructure, what we call Elysium, that allows other chains to anonymize tokens from their chains on our network. So that means we were not just a privacy coin, but privacy infrastructure for the entire crypto ecosystem. And that's how we see that, while we wait for payments to become a thing, we have this additional use case, which is to anonymize like stable coins or whatever. I mean, like, people say that they don't care, they hate fiat and whatnot, but look, Bitcoin price, everything is still, look at what is the US dollar value, right? And like, if you're selling milk, if you're selling a lot of stuff, if you're a merchant, most likely you want to receive a fiat value rather than have something that fluctuates up and down, right? That's the reality. So I feel that having people being able to bridge like stable coins into our system and transact in a private manner with those stable coins is also a use case for the Firo ecosystem that would also generate activity and minor fees and stuff like that. So we're really excited about that move, even though people might say, oh yeah, we're diverging, but I feel that we are still very core to what we believe in, but we also have to say, wait, what's wrong with providing this additional idea of being privacy infrastructure for the entire crypto ecosystem. Yeah.
No, that's
Sorry, I
really
went
good. So
on.
technically, eventually, I would be able to sell things for stable coins, right?
USDC, stable coins, DAI.
USDC, basically on the Firo network. So I could still transact with my friend in dollars, right?
Yes.
In a coin that is worth exactly $1, but send it
Yeah.
through the Firo infrastructure, and that way I have it privatized, right? Or
Yeah.
eventually hidden.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you very much for being here. I already have like a couple of questions I want to ask you about the Fed coin again, and the two different mining strategies, the physical mining and also the master nodes. So if you're interested, then please hit the like button, subscribe, and join me in the second part of this interview. Thank you very much.